Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Coming up on today's show tonight, the Georgia Bulldogs will do something that hasn't been done in over 10 years.
And as we put a bow on the 2022 season, who's made the most progress for the Falcons, who's regressed, and who is calling it quits in Flowery Branch?
And last but not least, and for the culture, man, I am so tired of playing this damn song on Black Monday. We'll talk about all that next, right here on ATL Day Ones. Let's go.
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
I want to start off by saying thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listener today. Remember, we're free and available wherever you download your podcast and wherever you download your podcast. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review. Really appreciate that from you in advance. Today's episode of ATL Day Ones is brought to you by Bet Online. And if you're tired of listening to us through your phone, you want to see us on the big screen, download that Roku and Amazon Fire app. All you have to do is type in the search box, Locked On Sports Atlanta, and ATL Day Ones will be on your screen. Jarvis and Tenitra right there waiting for you, face to face, right there, and breathing, living, live and in person. I think you get the point. All right, but today, T, I think the thing that we have to talk about tonight, the national championship, Max Duggan and TCU Horned Frogs, Stetson Bennett and the Georgia Bulldogs, Kirby Smart, Sonny Dykes. All those guys will be ready, trying to get this national championship title at the end of the game. And one of the things that I think I talk about as far as with this matchup is a lot of people coming into this game thinking that Georgia's going to win, right? But I think that I have concerns. I have some things that I've been looking at in this game, and I think the main thing for me is Max Duggan being able to be mobile, because Ohio State, C.J. Stroud, he forced himself to run the football, and you saw how capable he was of doing that and how effective it was on Georgia's defense. But I think Max Duggan is a guy that is an asset for him. And with Georgia wanting to play a little man coverage, that's not necessarily a good recipe for success, because when you have a quarterback who's mobile and who could take off running, man coverage involves the defense turning around and running with their doggone man. So, and if Max Duggan sees that, I wholeheartedly believe that he's going to take off with that football.
Yeah, I agree. And that's definitely one of those concerns. How will they be able to contain the mobile quarterback? But another concern for me is this. If he's able to get good protection from his offensive line, which he has been so far this season, we're talking only 24 sacks across this entire season. If he gets the kind of protection that gives him the time to kind of go through all of his progressions, right? Then that concerns me as well, because goodness knows that if he goes through his progressions, and hey, when you can be even put in the same sentence as Marvin Harrison Jr., as Quentin Johnston has been put in that category, put in that same sentence, that's something that really concerns me, because outside of Keely Ringo, I don't really know if I feel confident about the secondary from Georgia. I mean, they have gotten torched. Think about Ohio State, think about LSU, and those were the games that really exposed them. So I do hope that first and foremost, there will be some opportunity to get some pressure on Max Duggan, so that at least when he tries to hit you with that long ball, you can at least limit the number of explosive plays from him somehow and get him off his rhythm.
And I think that secondary, a big concern is right. Like, you're right in that, right? Because when you look at what Keely Ringo was able to do against Marvin Harrison before he went down, Marvin Harrison was passing out work whoever lined up on him. So I think that when you have a guy like Quentin Johnston, that is something that the TCU Horned Frogs are probably looking at, saying, you know what, this may be a matchup that we can take advantage of. And I think that when you look at the situation, though, I think that the Georgia Bulldogs defense is going to have to be very disciplined when you're talking about reading your keys and everything when you're running that zone coverage, because they're going to have to be very efficient in that, for the reason I just explained earlier as far as playing that man coverage, because Duggan doesn't mind putting the ball in his hands and saying, hey, you know what? Y'all got to get on my back, and I'll go ahead and figure this bad boy out, because they have been one of the best teams in college football in the fourth quarter and coming back and being able to overcome adversity throughout the entire season. So I think those are some of the things that the Georgia's going to have to be on the lookout for. Glenn Schumann, Will Muschamp, all those guys going to have to be really on it and really drilling down in those guys' head. Hey, believe what you see. Be disciplined. Read your keys. Don't be out there guessing, because if you get out there guessing, they have guys that can take advantage of those particular matchups or those mistakes. And we know Max Duggan doesn't have the best arm, but he can make the necessary throws and get the ball in his hands of his guys.
Right. And I think the other thing is this: Georgia may have seen, I believe, once this season, another 3-3-5 scheme. Little bit of a different scheme. So that is going to make this offensive line, which, like I said, they may have gotten the second place or runner up to Michigan, but I still believe them to be the best O-line in the country.
Indeed.
They're about to have to show improve and really, really win in the trenches, so that although it is maybe a defensive scheme that they've only seen one time, it's not something that they can't overcome. And I believe they'll be fine with it. I think maybe more hype around the 3-3-5 concept is, I think sometimes a little bit more hype there, but it is something that we need to watch and see kind of how Todd Monken either schemes for it, Jarvis, in the beginning, or makes halftime adjustments for it, which we do know Kirby Smart and Todd Monken are masterful at doing.
Yeah, you don't be on the verge of playing for back-to-back national titles without being able to adjust at halftime. And I think Monken is smart. They have, and Will Muschamp and all those guys have been able to have done a stand-up job throughout this entire season of getting those guys prepared to do what they need to do. Now, on the other side of the thing, one thing that I've been thinking about, like the thing for TCU is that it's going to be very interesting to see what they do, how they're able to pull off an upset, because I think if you talking about TCU having more points than Georgia at the end of this game, what would we be saying to you? Like, okay, TCU was able to do this in order to get the dub.
TCU would be able to somehow control time of possession, because you would literally have to keep their offense off the field. Because think about it. If they get that run game going and they start grinding that game out in that first half, then to me, it's just, it opens up the opportunity for it to be a track race in the second half, because they're just going to wear your defense down. And although it took them 2.5 quarters, almost 3 quarters to wear down the Buckeyes defense, they finally did, especially when there was willingness to just go ahead and give Kenny McIntosh the rock. So I think that's one of those things where TCU has to be, very, very mindful of, hey, if we can control it. But I say that, Jarvis, and on that same token, I'm not saying it's easy, because the last report I saw, Kendre Miller was 50-50 as far as if he's going to go or not. And the way you control time of possession is if your running game is going. And I don't know how effective it's going to be without him. I think that's one way that, TCU could certainly win the game. And I think the other way is if they're able to make sure, let's be honest, it's not like Jalen Carter had the best game of his life. Let's be honest, not like Georgia's been able to get home of recent. So if they
best pass rush sitting on the sideline.
There you go. Yeah. There it is. Yeah. So if they can, take advantage of the fact that UGA is not getting home and Max Duggan can have just enough time to get that ball to his receivers, I think that could be something for them. And hey, on offense, like we said, they've got good guys in the trenches. So I might even consider maybe saying their O-line might be a total X factor for them in whether or not they win the game, because if they get a grind out game, don't let them get that last possession, because I don't think you're going to be lucky enough to get 2 kickers to miss 2 game-winning field goals 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, TCU's kicker is going to make that bad, boy.
Exactly.
Like I said, they've been there, done that when it comes to fourth quarter comebacks. Absolutely. So, I think that TCU's defensive line may present a little challenge too as well. So some of those, they got some guys up there that's going to be playing at the next level. So I think that TCU has some weapons. They're coming to the party, and I think they're going to be ready to go. We will definitely be talking about all of that tomorrow for sure.
And the one other thing I wanted to share before we wrap up is this. And again, that takes nothing away from TCU and Sonny Dykes, but I'm going to give a world of credit to Kirby Smart, because as we said last week, we wanted to be flies on the wall on the trip back to Athens, because I am sure that he lit them up. They probably had some conditioning moments after the game, or at least to crack it on the next day. That's the other piece. Michigan left a lot of points on that table with all of those mistakes that they made, 2 pick-sixes, for example, out of the gates, and yet TCU barely beat them. I don't think that Kirby Smart allows Georgia to make the mistakes that Michigan made, and B, I don't think Kirby Smart allows Georgia as a whole and Stetson Bennett to the extreme that he can actually control it, right? I don't think he allows Georgia to execute as poorly as they did in the first half. So I think those two things combined with him and his coaching style and his coaching success should mean that another trophy is going to Athens.
Absolutely. If we're talking about both teams playing clean games, no turnovers and everything like that, there's no question that the black and red will be hoisting that trophy once again. Now, T, late last night, 112-108, the Atlanta Hawks, Nate McMillan get his 750th career win as a head coach. And when I was watching that post game, T, like the one thing that really stood out to me was the fact that the coach mentioned resiliency. Because when the Clippers went on that run in the third quarter, it looked like it was same old Hawks, same old when it comes to the Atlanta Hawks. But they came down in the fourth quarter, and Trae Young was able to close that bad boy out for the closer that he is. But, we're not used to necessarily seeing Trae in this role because they just haven't been in position to close out games as of late. And I think but it was good to see it last night.
Yeah, and when you think about the fact that in the last 2.5 minutes, the Hawks virtually rendered the Clippers scoreless, that was also critical because that really leans itself into your defense. That leans itself into some powerful
DeAndre Hunter on Kawhi.
Exactly. Yep. And that was critical. And just Onyeka Okongwu getting big blocks at key moments. And then, like you said, Trae being able to ice it at the free throw line, because the Hawks have always been one of the best free throw teams in the league as far as overall percentage goes. And they've struggled at the line at a lot of times this season. So yeah, just to see kind of that overall effort. But I know what really made Nate proud, like you said, was the resilience that the team showed overall, and the fact that when it counted the most, it was their defense that even put them in position to get a win.
Absolutely. And I think that, we talking about being put in position to get a win, the Falcons got a win. But looks like Arthur Smith is going to have to replace someone that he did not know he would have to, or maybe he did. We'll talk about that next. But first, we got to talk about betonline.net because it is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs, find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Woo, T, we talking about the 2-touchdown favorite that the Bulldogs were. The Falcons were a favorite coming into the game. I was trying to wonder whether or not, why were they favorite? It's because Tom Brady probably wasn't going to play the whole game, which is so fair. You know what type of information that you can find that's at Bet Online, because it continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, for live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They got you covered. You guys come to us each and every day for all your ATL sports needs. For all your sports wagering needs, go to Bet Online today. Or you can use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today, because Bet Online is where the game starts.
Yeah, and like you said, the Falcons won for the second week in a row, 30-17 against the Bucs, of course, avenging that Week 5 loss, which was great to see them end on a high note. But they also had a loss. And, whether it's talking about the loss of DPs as he has decided to retire from being the defensive coordinator for the Falcons, or if you talk about all of the dominoes that have fallen in the NFL so far, Cliff Kingsbury being one of them, Lovie Smith being another, you can get all the reaction on Locked On Sports today, because that's what they do. They talk about the biggest stories, like how those chips actually fell, all the way down to the wire of the last week of the last day of games in the NFL yesterday to play out they'll complete the playoff picture. That's where you can go and find that information. So again, it's Locked On Sports today. And also they'll give you their take of the day, just like we give you cool information and our takes in for the culture. So again, after you check us out at Odyssey or the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast, make sure you check out Locked On Sports today. Now, going back to the win, which was great, But then you come the next day and you get a loss in Dean Pease, and you think about the great opportunity that the Falcons had for Arthur Smith to even get him to come out of retirement in the
Right.
first place, and then
Yeah.
for them to get him 2 seasons in a row. And we talked about this last week because there were kind of some rumblings there, but really when you look back at it, we said, well, it's still kind of in good hands because at least you got Dean Pease for 2 years, and then if you go with his linebackers coach or his D-line coach, they at least know that system and probably will keep that system in place. Don't know that yet, whether they'll stay in-house or go outside. But regardless, I believe that Dean Pease definitely left an imprint. And definitely, Jarvis, you can say that he left a legacy with the Falcons.
Absolutely, because when you think about, you can just see the passion and the drive that he still had up until his last day. He left his doggone place. Not left the Falcons facility as far as retiring, because I ain't like the way that sounded. It didn't come out right. But yeah, I think because he's a guy that, he has standards, right? But he had, ways that he's won. Like he's won multiple Super Bowls, and and a lot of defense coordinators can't say that. Actually, I think it's only like 7 or 8 guys who can say that won with 2 different teams, multiple teams. So I think when you think about what the legacy that he had as a coach and what he tried to bring here and tried to establish here, and I think he established a little bit of that, because when you think about coming down towards the end of the season, a lot of teams weren't scoring over 20 points, and they gave the offense plenty of opportunities to get some dubs towards the end of the season. And I think that's all you can ask for, given the situation with all the salary cap and not really having that much talent, up front. Hashtag pass rush matters. So I think that, when you have all those things in place and you put it in the pot and you say, here you go, Dean, work your magic. I think he did a pretty stand-up job. And I think that a lot of people don't think a lot of people realize that, because a lot of people are excited about Dean Pease leaving. I'm just like, all right, okay. Like, were you watching at any point during the season as far as like what this dude had to deal with and what he was, as far as injury wise as well? So So shout out to Dean Pease for doing a stand up job in the 2 years he was here as the Falcons defense coordinator.
Right. And did anybody look back at last year and the head scratcher that Richie Grant was in his coverage? Does anybody remember that Michael Walker was coming up, but he wasn't quite there yet last year?
Right.
Galen Hawkins, we weren't quite kind of sure of what to make of him. The reason I mention those guys first is because of the imprint, like you said, the standard for excellence that he was going to set no matter where your talent level was, because you were going to understand the playbook. You were going to know where you were supposed to be at all times. And then he was going to expect you to be there, or Richie Grant, you won't get playing time, right?
Indeed.
Last year or this year, Michael Walker, you might not start. Or on the flip side, in the positive perspective, Isaiah Oliver, somebody finally figures out how to utilize you
development
effectively. So you come back from the injury and have yourself a year. Those are the kinds of things that I feel like Dean Pease has left a legacy and an imprint in terms of players understanding that they always need to rise to the next level and try to evolve their game. And that it's more than just about this raw talent. You've got to bring to the table some football IQ as well. And I also think about players like Rashaan Evans, who maybe was here on a prove it, but working under Dean Pease one more time, kind of think he might be back here next season and may bring a good philosophy. So yeah, a pretty nice legacy that Dean's leaving. Now, one of the things we talked about as well is when, and this could be under Dean on the defensive side, could be on the offensive side as well. It just kind of depends on where your thinking cap is. But every year we look at somebody and we say, wow, that guy, he did it. He progressed year over year. And man, he's going to be gangbusters next year. And some people are head scratchers. And we go, well, what the heck was this season for him? Like, that's not what we expected. So whether it's on offense or defense, who's the guy that just surprised you and you're like, whoa, now that's some progress that I think is going to be absolutely incredible for the Falcons going forward.
I would have to say it's Drake London. Okay. Because when you think about like the way he came in, right? He came in with injuries, nicked up, and a lot of people knocking the speed, not being able to create separation. A lot of people who didn't want him on his team. So, because we wanted somebody, for those who are listening, we're raising our hands because we wanted somebody who could sack the quarterback. That's just kind of how we lust for those type of things. Well, I lust for, T don't lust. She's, I'm God still. God ain't through with me yet. So
let's go.
Right. So when you think about the way he progressed during the year, and then like coming down toward the end of the season, like the rapport that he had with Desmond Ridder, like he kind of talked about that a little bit during rookie mini camps and all that stuff, but you start to see that it was real. Like it was confirmed. I'm talking about to the tune of 36 targets, 25 catches, 333 yards in 4 games. So think about that. That is a very nice connection that you have something to look forward to in 2023 for the Atlanta Falcons. So I think the Drake London's progression is somebody that I was just like, okay, I didn't see that coming. I was thinking it was going to be a guy kind of come along, work him out, and then once you saw the quarterback change, it was just like it was a different player. And I think that says a lot about Drake, and it says a lot about Mr. Number 4 as well.
Oh, I agree. And that's exactly what I was thinking. Like, you really saw what Drake London could be in these last 4 games. Not that you didn't see hints of it in the first 4, but it was just incredible in the last 4. And also, I want to add to that list Tyler Allgeier, because just chugging. I mean, like every game, it was just like he was just building on what he did the last game until he just finally exploded these last 4 games. And I remember saying on this show, even last week, because we kind of knew, like, don't even try to like get at him and say, oh, well, he did it in a 17-game season. No, he was inactive the first game. So if you want to give William Andrews all the credit in the world for doing what he did in 1979 as a rookie, you got to give Tyler Allgeier the same credit. And I might actually give him even more because he's a 5th rounder. So that's my guy who I felt like game by game, I saw some progress that was extremely encouraging. Now, Jarvis, let's be real. It's not always a good look. Some people do take a step back. So for you, who is that guy that made you look like, wow, I didn't expect this season from him?
Wow. It would probably have to be Michael Walker, because when you think about like the way he started out leading up to the preseason with Deion Jones and people I know for me, I was okay with Deion Jones going by the wayside because I was like, hey, number 3 going to step in. Even Dean Pease said the same thing as far as he wanted him to be that signal caller. He said he pointed him out at the end of last season that, hey, this is going to be my guy who's going to call plays for me. And when you think about from coming from that to start the season and then, get some confirmation, right, some justification behind that to start the season, and then you just gradually saw as Troy Anderson start getting those snaps, whether they were earned or not. That's my opinion. I don't care about what y'all say, whether they were earned or not. You just saw the regression, like as the season went along, and I think that's truly unfortunate, and it got to make you wonder whether or not this is going to be a situation where he's going to be around to have an opportunity to make the team, or they might be looking to move on from him. So, but that was one that was kind of a head scratcher when as the season went along.
Yeah, I would say the same. And I think for me, I probably would have to give him that cosign too, because we spoke to him before, like back in last season? Yeah, the beginning of last season. And we were excited about what we saw as he progressed under Dean Pease. And like you said, Dean Pease identified him as, hey, that's our guy. That's basically the quarterback of this defense. And then all of a sudden we look up and the quarterback of the defense is no longer there. So that's kind of a tough call for us. But hopefully it'll be a regression that maybe sometimes, Jarvis, you have situations that take you out of your rhythm. Sometimes you have little injuries that we may not know because maybe you're not injured enough to not play or be put on IR, but maybe you're just injured enough not to be your best self. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, he's my player as well. And of course, tomorrow we're going to dig down a little bit further and we're going to talk about Desmond Ridder. We're going to talk about Tyler Allgeier. We're going to talk about Drake London. And because Kyle Pitts is not on the field or wasn't the rest of the remaining part of the year, we're just going to call them like our 3 Musketeers. And we'll talk tomorrow about what we expect out of those guys next year. But also, if you guys are excited and have great expectations about tonight's game, for example, or even what those guys are going to do next year, and you just want to celebrate it, well, some people celebrate with chocolate. So that means you can celebrate with a Built Bar. And here's the exciting part. They got some new twists to it for 2023. If you have a goal like we do of eating healthier, certainly you can do that, but you don't have to compromise taste. Why? Because you're talking about 100% real chocolate. That's what makes these Built Bars so good. And these are some cool flavors if you're into like different flavors: churro, peanut butter, brownie,
Churro.
coconut almond. I like almond. You like churros, so we probably can find a middle ground there. But definitely 130 calories, not a bad look for a candy bar, 4 grams of sugar, and most importantly, remember before 15 grams of protein. They've upped their game, 17 grams, and the ultimate elevation of the game. No more built.com. You can go there if you want to, but you don't have to. You can go to Walmart or you can go to Sam's Club as well. Walmart, of course, will have the smaller options, the 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. Sam's Club, you can get up to 13 bars. Again, that churro is a good look. So be sure to thank Jarvis and I later when you get your Built Bars.
Absolutely. Locked On Sports Atlanta family. Listen up. I got something for you. I got a plan for you. I got a plan of action for you. If you have not liked or subscribed to our YouTube channel, go ahead and do it right now. We are on the verge of making our way towards 5,300 subscribers, but we're not stopping short right there. We like to set lofty goals. We want 6,000. So we got a little ways to go. So we want you to help us out by going there. Hit that subscribe button. And if you check us out on the audio side, go ahead and leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate that from you in advance. Now, T, this is For the Culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, the culture, and sometimes whatever the hell we want to talk about, because it's just how we get down on this show. Today is no different. Now, we all know that on the Monday following the last Sunday in the NFL, they normally refer to it as Black Monday. And a lot of times it seems like black head coaches are the ones that get fired. And today is no different. T. Lovie Smith let go by the Houston Texans. Cal McNair releases a post on social media, a statement on social media about thank you for your services and blah, 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 blah. But the thing that stood out to me, T, is that he said Nick Caserio and I. Nick Caserio is the general manager for the Houston Texans. Nick Caserio hired David Culley, fired him after 1 year. Nick Caserio helped hire Lovie Smith, fired him after 1 season. So why is Cal McNair speaking all this French, talking about Nick and I are going to figure out who's going to be the leader of this organization going forward? That's my whole question. That's my first question, T. Like, kind of help me out here, because am I wrong in this, saying that, hey, why is Lovie Smith being the fall guy in this particular situation?
Yeah, because that's the Houston Texans. That's what they do. They point the finger at the wrong guy, and they like to find fall guys, and they like to throw you under the bus. And I'll go back to even Deshaun Watson. I am not at all dismissing the things he did, because, hey, well, there's no fire. But let's not act like the Houston Texans were not supportive of him until the very last moment and then flipped on him. So they have kind of a history of doing this thing, and they've also been accused of some questionable practices as it relates to people of color and women. So I will say this. While I agree with what you're saying, I don't appreciate that somehow Nick Caserio still has a job. Like, why would you have a job finding the coaches? No, you need to be fired too. McNair should be looking for your replacement above and beyond anything, because like you said, he hired him. But I also lay blame at the feet of David Culley and Lovie Smith, because you had to be, I don't know, I'm going to try to use a euphemism, not completely thinking soundly intellectually to take that job. I get it, David Culley, a little bit of an older gentleman, kind of like a Dean Pease, right, who's been around for forever, known as a great defensive mind, and maybe thought, hey, this is my last crack at an opportunity for a head coaching gig in the NFL. I get it. But all gigs aren't good gigs. And that is about as bad as when Hugh Jackson took over the Browns. And amazingly, after Hugh Jackson was fired, amazingly, they got all their pieces, all their ducks in order to make sure that everything was good to go with Kevin Stefanski. But again, when Hugh Jackson took that job, most people were on the sidelines going, don't do it, reconsider, read some letter. Sure, that's what all three of them should have done on the subject, because then you would have known this is what the outcome was going to be.
Oh, man, you must thought they had your back like chiropractic dick. Sorry. But yeah, I like it. So the one thing just that you mentioned, that is a very good point, by the way. But here's the thing, though. Like, the NFL has put them in a position to where they have to take those jobs because guess what? They're not going to get real opportunities elsewhere. So for those bad organizations like the Cleveland Browns who fired their defensive coordinator and Kevin Stefanski up here making statements like he doggone just is walking on water as a coach. And we already know what time it is with that. So it's just like certain situations are where the situation in Houston was dire. Like you had your franchise quarterback wanted out. He had all these sexual allegations. You all were basically waiting to trade him, and then you said, you know what? We need to hire somebody that'll be willing to take this job. Let's go hire a brother. and at the end of the day, that's the worst part of this situation because you already know that they know that these black coaches aren't going to get opportunities. So guess what? You can't turn this down. So go ahead and take this job, and you're going to be at our beck and call as to whatever you want us to do, whether Lovie Smith going for it, going for the win yesterday against the Indianapolis Colts, whether that had anything to do with it, probably not, but it just goes to show you that the type of power that these owners have, and they know the situation that these minority coaches are in, so they take advantage of it on the other end of it. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we'll give them an opportunity. No, you give them an opportunity to go ahead and doggone deal with all the bull crap. So when you're finally figured out that you think that you're ready to win, then that's when you go hire somebody that look like you. And that's what I have a real issue with, T. That's the problem for me. And I think that, to be honest with you, I don't even know if it's anything that the NFL can do.
Yeah, I think that the better thing would have been to just decline the job and then speak on why you declined it. That's about the only way you can probably take a stance. It's a tough stance. It's a very
tough one.
It's a risky chance. But, I mean, again, you made the decision to be the guy and say, okay, I know I'm probably going to be fired at the end of the season, but this is what I'm going to do. So, I don't know. I mean,
twice as good.
But hey.
Twice as good.
Yeah.
Ooh, wow. All right. Yeah, we can continue that, but we're going to move on for that. But what we want to do is thank you guys for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. Make sure you make Locked On Sports Today your second listen today. You can find it wherever you find this podcast. You can find Locked On Sports Today. They got all the good stuff going on. They're going to be talking about the national championship as well. We will be tomorrow. So make sure you come back and check us out as we download on the national championship. Will TCU upset the Dogs, or will the Dogs be repeat champions? Or we'll be talking about history. Make sure y'all come back tomorrow. Y'all come back now, you hear? Please.